The luxury car door clicked shut, silencing the noise of the city. A millionaire CEO, known for her unshakable confidence, adjusted her designer jacket and prepared for another busy day. But then, out of nowhere, a small, sharp voice cut through the air. It wasn't her driver, her assistant, or anyone she expected. It was a little black boy sitting quietly in the back seat. And his words, they were shocking. He looked her straight in the eye and told her to shut up. For a woman used to commanding boardrooms and silencing critics, those two words would unravel her entire day and reveal a truth she never saw coming. Victoria Hale was the kind of woman most people envied. She had risen from a modest background to become one of the most powerful CEOs in her city. Her company, a global real estate empire, had its headquarters in a glass tower that sparkled above the skyline. People whispered about her relentless drive, her endless wealth, and her ability to shut down competitors with a single meeting. She loved control. Every detail of her life was managed to perfection. Her driver picked her up at the exact same time every morning. Her assistants prepared her schedule to the minute. She wore power like armor. That morning had been no different. She swept into her car, ready to rehearse notes for a major investors' meeting. But when the door shut, her world shifted. There, in the leather seat opposite her, sat a young black boy no older than 8. His sneakers were scuffed, his shirt too big for his frame, and his eyes, wide, defiant, didn't flinch under her startled gaze. Before she could ask who he was or why he was there, he cut her off with 2 simple words: shut up. At first, Victoria felt outrage. She wasn't used to being spoken to like that, especially by a child. But something about the way his voice cracked, the way his tiny hands clenched in his lap, stopped her from lashing out. This wasn't just a rude child. This was something else, something urgent. The car rolled forward, and Victoria's pulse quickened. She snapped at her driver, demanding to know why a child was in her car. But the driver remained oddly silent, eyes fixed on the road. The little boy shifted nervously, his chest rising and falling too fast. Victoria realized then that he wasn't being disrespectful. He was terrified. His command for her to shut up wasn't born out of arrogance. It was born out of desperation. Slowly he began to whisper. He told her not to talk, not to ask questions, not to draw attention. She didn't understand, but she noticed him glance nervously out the window. That's when she saw it. A black SUV following close behind. Its tinted windows concealed whoever was inside, but its every move mirrored her car's path, the boy explained in fragments. He lived in one of the city's poorest neighborhoods. His mother worked 2 jobs and barely had time to rest, but she always walked him to school. That morning, as they crossed the street, a group of men had appeared in the SUV. They grabbed him, shoving him inside before he could scream. He thought he'd never escape, but somehow, in the chaos, he slipped free. Running as fast as his legs would carry him, he ducked into the first luxury car he saw with its door unlocked, hers. And now those men were still hunting him. Victoria's chest tightened. She had built her empire on logic, risk management, and cold calculation. But nothing in her world had prepared her for this. A scared child, racism, poverty, and violence colliding at her doorstep. She looked again at the SUV. It wasn't just following, it was closing in. And in that instant, she realized something else. This wasn't just random. The boy said the men called him trash, told him he didn't matter, told him no one would care if he disappeared. It wasn't just a kidnapping, it was a statement, fueled by hate. Victoria felt anger spark inside her. This child wasn't disposable. He wasn't trash. He was trembling in front of her, clinging to life with everything he had. For a woman who usually had all the answers, Victoria now had none. Her carefully built control shattered. Then, the window of the SUV rolled down just a crack. A man's eyes glared out, cold, deliberate, full of disdain. Victoria understood instantly. They weren't after ransom. They weren't after power. They were after domination. The child was a target because of who he was, not what he had. Her instincts kicked in. "Drive faster," she ordered. But the boy grabbed her sleeve with trembling hands. His eyes pleaded. If they were caught, it would be over. For the first time in her life, Victoria felt what it meant to be powerless. She saw how fragile life could be for someone who had no wealth. No protection, no status. The very thing she had built her empire on, power, meant nothing here. Her driver swerved into traffic, horns blaring, tires screeching. The SUV followed relentlessly. Victoria shielded the boy as the chase grew more dangerous, each turn tighter than the last. Finally, in a desperate move, her driver veered into a police checkpoint. Officers swarmed instantly, hands on weapons, ready for confrontation. The SUV hesitated, then sped away. The car came to a trembling stop. Victoria exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. The boy, still clutching her arm, whispered the same words again. but softer this time. Not angry, not defiant, just exhausted. "Shut up." And she did. She held him, silent, as tears she didn't expect welled in her eyes. In the hours that followed, the police questioned Victoria, the boy, and eventually tracked down the SUV. It turned out the men were tied to a group with a long history of targeting vulnerable children in underprivileged communities, kids they believed no one would fight for. But someone did fight. Unexpectedly, it was her. The woman who had built her life on money, walls, and distance had become the shield for a child who had nothing but courage. As she sat in her office later, staring out at the city she thought she ruled, Victoria realized the truth. Power didn't lie in boardrooms or skyscrapers. Real power was standing up for those society tried to silence. The boy's words echoed in her mind. "Shut up." At first, they had sounded like defiance. Now she understood. Sometimes silence is survival. Sometimes silence is protection. And sometimes, silence is the only way to listen to voices the world ignores. From that day forward, Victoria used her influence differently. She funneled resources into protecting children in vulnerable neighborhoods. She funded programs to fight against racial targeting and hate crimes. She vowed never to ignore the quiet battles being fought beyond her glass tower, because a little boy once told her to shut up. And when she finally did, she heard the truth. And now, as you hear this story, ask yourself, how many voices have we ignored simply because we were too busy speaking? How many times have we failed to see the fight someone else is quietly waging? Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is stop, listen, and choose to stand beside the ones who've been told they don't matter.